So he really is, Musk is coming at this from a very intelligent angle, anticipating the fight on the backside of this in order to, that's the thing. What people don't appreciate, while the market is pricing out future rate cuts, the statisticians at the Federal Reserve are losing their mind.
Meet Danielle DiMartino Booth. She's not your typical economist. As the CEO and chief strategist at QI Research, she spent years diving deep into the numbers, uncovering the stories most people miss. Today, Danielle breaks down the big questions on everyone's mind. Are we already in a recession? And if so, why does it feel so familiar? Plus, she has some eye-opening insights about Elon Musk. Yep, the man behind Tesla and SpaceX might just have a surprising role in making the government more efficient. And let's not forget the Federal Reserve. What challenges are they facing right now? And why do they seem to be walking a tightrope? Danielle DiMartino Booth is about to connect the dots in ways that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the economy. Buckle up. This is a conversation you don't want to miss.
Well, we have seen quite the string of downward revisions. In fact, I prefer to look at the job market through the prism of the private sector because we've had such a dominant creation of jobs on the government side. But I like to look at what the private sector is doing because that really reflects the economy. And what we've seen is in October, for that 12,000 headline print, we actually lost 28,000 jobs in the private sector. And you're right, revisions have become systematic in nature. They've been going on since 2022. January of 2022 is when we first saw a negative revision to private payrolls, and it hasn't been broken. So more importantly, the longer something goes on, the higher the probability it's going to end. So we actually might be getting towards the end of these downward revisions. What's important, though, are the annual numbers, the annual revisions that we've seen. On Wednesday of this week, we saw the quarterly census of employment and wages come out. And we know that instead of 2.5 million jobs created, it was 1.25. And again, focusing on the private sector, in the year ended June 30, 2024, and that's the period that these revisions covered, it wasn't 2.3 million jobs in the private sector that were created, it was 737,000. And what that tells us, because we only have this preliminary annual figure, is that it's likely that private sector job destruction began a lot earlier than October, and in fact probably began early in 2024. So we're going to see these revisions continue to come out that effectively rewrite history, but also tell most Americans that they weren't imagining the recession that they continued to say was ongoing, that it actually happened, but only with the benefit of hindsight are we finding out what that real data is. I think that if he is allowed to come in, and again, every president since Nixon has made similar promises coming through the front door and not succeeded. So we'll have to wait and see what the Constitution, the Supreme Court, and Congress have to say about Musk's ability. But I will say this much. He has come in, and there was a good op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that he co-authored with Vivek a few days ago. They're starting with constitutional attorneys. So they're starting with the approach of, if this is going to be disputed, we want to come in with something that's going to stand up to the Constitution and make its way through the Supreme Court and prevail. So he really is, Musk is coming at this from a very intelligent angle, anticipating the fight on the backside of this in order to potentially unwind a lot of executive orders that overreached to begin with and gave these federal agencies way too much power to wield. And on behalf of U.S. taxpayers, I hope he does succeed. I think that is more the aim here. And I think the $2 trillion cut in spending is, it would be very difficult to do. But on the other hand, when you hear some of the, I'm going to go after this, I'm going to go after that, why do we have one of the largest lobbyists in the country setting Medicare prices? I said it on TV a few days ago, you've let the fox into the hen house.
Yeah, 100%.
It makes absolutely no sense that the market shouldn't be deciding what these prices are. And that would explain, the United States shouldn't be spending more than $12,000 per capita versus other developed nations spending $6,000. Clearly there is waste to go after. And it's easy to identify. So again, if he's allowed to do this, if the special interests don't lose their minds and force Congress to intervene, we might actually see things get done. And there's a higher probability of that because of the red sweep. That's the thing. What people don't appreciate, while the market is pricing out future rate cuts, the statisticians at the Federal Reserve are losing their mind because they pay attention to these arcane revisions that come out because they have to. It completely destroys their spreadsheets. They have to go back and put the math in, and they'll be saying, especially to the incoming doves who are going to be voting on the Federal Open Market Committee, we have to continue lowering interest rates. Well, according to Scott Bessent, he can put a puppet in to be a shadow Fed chair. I don't know where Bessent intends to put this person because the first opening on the Federal Reserve Board is in January of 2026. So you got a long runway between now and more than a year from now before he can even maneuver that. So I think we've got Powell.
Yeah.
I think Powell's going to keep running the show for a while here. In that sense, yes, because you would have thought that it might have come from a Democratic president. But I actually think that Bessent is a more independent choice and probably shouldn't be painted just because of the role that he played for the Soros Foundation. And I watched a recent, very long-form interview with him, and what most people want to know is the damage that tariffs could do ... immediately.
Right.
Bessent has laid out a blueprint to say, if you're an American manufacturer, I'm going to give you 2 years to friendshore, nearshore, onshore. And if after 2 years you refuse to leave our sovereign enemy, our sovereign economic enemy, China, well, then out comes the stick. But first I'm going to give you a carrot to bring manufacturing closer to home and give you the necessary time. You can't build a factory overnight. Mm-hmm. You need time to do so. And Bessent has very thoughtfully laid out a plan to give companies enough time to do that. Yeah. That means that we're not going to have overnight inflationary tariffs. Bessent has said, order of business number one is extending those tax cuts. Extending tax cuts, extending the status quo won't be inflationary. Right. It'll just be status quo. So in that sense, I think that there's a lot less of an inflationary impulse initially than, again, the scaremongering that we've seen in the media. Yeah. That's all it is scaremongering. Yeah. Again, I think that if we are saying that the average recession only lasts about a year, and we're seeing bankruptcies running as fast as we are, we could be right now in the heat of recession. Therefore, I'm hoping that the U.S. economy comes out of recession in 2025 and that this time next year we can look back and say it's over. Yeah. And we'll know that when we stop seeing the bankruptcies. We'll know that when we stop having companies announce in their earnings releases, we just lost 5,000 employees. We'll know that when the layoff announcements become hiring announcements. And that is why I think it's so critical to follow real-time announcements to see what's happening in the economy today. We have to get through the lag effect of shelter inflation. Now we're at the peak of that. Now we've got to get through shelter disinflation. And the Cleveland Fed rent index tells us that we've got a good 12 months to go before we see disinflation halt in shelter.
That's a wrap for today. Danielle DiMartino Booth has given us plenty to think about. Bankruptcies, recession timelines, and even Musk's unexpected role in the bigger picture. But this is just the beginning. The economy is constantly evolving, and we'll be here to break it all down for you. If you found this insightful, don't forget to hit like button, subscribe for more, and hit the bell icon for deep dives into the world of finance and economics. Until next time, stay informed and stay prepared.